Trust me, I'm 100% Canadian, but let me share something with you, that the DEA has no influence in Canada. Just listen.
This is a respectful dialogue. Now we're listening.
You'll get some facts tonight, folks, that you didn't know. Here are some facts for you, and you can argue with the facts when it goes to court. Let's not argue tonight. But here's some facts that I can share with you that aren't super confidential. The police department in Vancouver investigated well over 2 years ago Mr. Emery, provided information to Crown Counsel to support charges. Crown Counsel refused to take those charges. The DEA picked up on that information and initiated their own investigation. And they've sought extradition. That's not the Canadian police. It's completely legal. I'm not defending them. Don't get for a minute I'm defending them. I'm not. I'm not from America. But these are the relationships that we enjoy with international countries abroad. And to enjoy those relationships on a broad level, one has to respect the rules of the game. And America is simply playing by the rules of the game that your elected members of Parliament made. And if you've got a beef, don't go to the DEA, go to Ottawa, because that's where the issue lies. And don't go to the police department. They're just doing their job. And please, treat it as a political situation. Don't jump all over the DEA or the police department. The police department is not a puppet of the DEA, trust me. They're not. They don't work with them. They don't care about them. They've got enough problems right here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think all the spokespeople up here have hit on issues that are barriers for legalizing marijuana, cannabis. I think that it is realistic at this point in time, rather than to strive for legalization, to strive for decriminalization and take it a step at a time, build it component by component, because there is significant resistance to the legalization of marijuana, from my experience, right across Canada and in other areas other than Vancouver. We live in a very liberal area here in the Lower Mainland. And our views are a little different. For instance, in Quebec, the users of marijuana are listed at about 5% here that have ever used marijuana in their lifetime. Here it's about 27% in BC. So you see this trend rolling west. And nothing right or wrong with it, just that's the way it is. So convincing some other provinces to jump in on legalization may be a huge barrier that they just won't agree with. Was far deeper than it looks, and the DEA are not pulling the strings of either Ottawa or locally here. They're doing what they do legally. They're asking for extradition. Whether they get it or not, it's a total other matter. I mean, and that's how you folks can influence people through meetings like this and through your politicians. But the influence won't come with the police department or with the DEA, clearly, because they're within their rights. And we all agree with that, that we have to have rules. If we want to change them, then we know where to go to change them. In case you're wondering, folks, never has been. When I hear the term drug war, you can argue all you want, but Canada uses less than 3% of what America donates from the federal government. In fact, not just from the federal government, in the entire budget for the war against drugs in America is a little different than here. Our budget for it is 3%. There is no war on drugs in Canada. Trust me, if there was, it would be more like America. But and we're not like America, and I'm happy that we're not. Your first question,
Canadian people in jail cells, there's no war on drugs. Canadian people sitting in jail cells, there's no war against them using drugs.
Let's call that a battle. A war would look like America, and none of us want it.
And the other one was people who are trying.
Come to Canada. I mean, what's there to say? Cross the border, come to Canada. I mean, people have been doing it for years to avoid drafts, for instance. It's nothing new. There is a treaty, though, that same treaty, that extradition treaty, that we're so upset about locally here in Vancouver lately, that will ensure that those people go back to the States if they're caught, and there's an agreement in place there. So that's the tit for tat.
Okay, thank you.
I can give you where the scripture says you can go and read it for us. I know all judges and lawyers, everyone swear on this Bible. So isn't that a contradictory message for some of us?
Well, it's a good point. I've sworn on the Bible too many times. I can't even remember. However, I do recall also that thou shalt not commit murder. And I've investigated far too many of those. We as humans don't do a good job of following the tenets of the Bible at times. And I'll leave it at that.
Not addressing the question.
It didn't answer my question.
Well, I'm sorry. Answer for
But
you.
the book is being sworn on, that we swear allegiance to the Queen,
Yes.
the Bible that will honor the truth and blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And the same book is not respected, so this is what I'm saying.
I'm agreeing with you, that book is not
Message to
respected.
us who read
You want to comment on the hypocrisy of
This is
staff?
it.
There.
The hypocrisy,
Yes.
I value that as virtually the same as thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not steal. We still do it.
We still do it?
We?
When have you
Some.
heard someone?
I'm
Okay.
sorry?
All
We
right.
as a society, sir?
All right, please.
We as a society?
Okay, one more quick question because we have a
My
line and
next
we've got 20
question
minutes.
is my, it's not just.
To reality,
but
okay?
I finish my paragraph.
The ruling clause,
Compassionate
they
law.
steal
Thank
things.
you.
I appreciate where you're
Perhaps,
going. I
perhaps
just
somebody
can't.
from the VPD who
I'm
didn't
not
like
a-
the answer they got from Crown Council, decided that they weren't going to go to Ottawa as you recommended to us, and decided that they would go to the DEA instead?
Well, what I said clearly is that it's my understanding that the DEA has picked up on an investigation and followed up on it, and that's their bailiwick, and I don't have any information on it. So you're
So
just
we
putting
have
me on
no
the spot.
quibblings on the VPD, is that right?
I'm not talking about the VPD, I'm talking about the DEA. I'm not going to get a discussion with you tonight, sir, on the VPD.
Okay,
That's
next
all I'm
question,
here
please.
Past investigations, that's not what I was invited to do here, and I'm not representing the Vancouver Police Department. I'm representing myself solely. So I certainly respect where you're coming from.
Well, this is kind of a question for everybody here to consider. Are we obligated to agree and go along with the treaties we have with the United States when they disrespect the treaties they have with Canada and other countries? Case in point, South Dakota. Do you feel we're obligated? I mean, can we just tell them, take off, kind of like they said to us?
I guess on a personal note, I'm a believer in rule of law, and I think we have to respect law, notwithstanding in our agreements, notwithstanding how we're treated by a friendly trading partner. I mean, we're not talking about a war here between each other. Having said that, I also believe in the rule of law, that if we want to amend the law, there's a process for that, and I'm a firm believer in doing that and working towards that. Softwood lumber is a perfect example of we need to be active and proactive and work with this and be heard and not be sat on by our neighbors. I agree. I'm 100% behind you there. But I do believe that there is a process, and I think we should follow the process. If it's flawed, then we need to change the process.
Okay.
Sure, I support decriminalization, and there's just a couple of points I would make with that. I'd want to see a real, complete package going with this. This isn't something we just dream up overnight tonight and march out of here and say we've changed the law. I'd like to see a full assessment of the fiscal impact on our nation, on our law enforcement, on our judicial system, so that we assess that and we understand what we're getting into. I'd like to see established performance indicators. I mean, we're going to have to do some work, folks. It's not just a quick one-night stand. I'd like to see a public component where the public have an easy opportunity to voice their concerns.
But we've already been there, haven't we, with the Senate report?
You're asking me what I'd like.
Okay, but more gathering of public opinion?
I didn't say Senate report. I said easily accessible public opinion. Now, I don't know, have you ever gone to the Senate? I have once in my life. I'm talking about nights like this that would impact on politicians. Not having the four of us up here, but anyway, let's not go further with that. That's what I mean by that, easy access. I'd like to see thorough research of international programs that are in place now, whether it be in the States, with, I think you said 13 states have adopted this, or 12, Australia. I'd like to see a thorough review of those programs. How are they working? What can we do better? What should we avoid? A much more thorough, I should say, system of researching and tracking current cannabis offenses in Canada. I don't think we're doing a good job of that. Please don't shake your heads and say, this guy's wacko. I'm talking about understanding the the problems before we go making new law. That's all I'm asking for.
But you apply that criteria to prohibition itself?
Pardon me?
Well, there's no success in prohibition. Are you applying the very same rigorous standards to 30 years of a failed policy before you decide that there's an alternative?
I see this as an open policy. I see this as you and I, as subjects here in Canada, being able to step up to a microphone and influence law. That's not the way this law was made. You know it and I know it. I'd like to see us research properly. I'd like to see an education component built into this so that it doesn't appear that the government is literally supporting the use of cannabis, particularly for our children, just the way they do it for cigarettes. Okay?
Should
The
they
same
not
thing.
suspend the drug war until that time and stop spending money on prohibition until they figure that out, though?
Maybe they should. Maybe they should. So I'd like to see that. I'd also like to see, obviously, a civil response, meaning I don't want to see people going to jail for simple possession.
Safe, natural alternative for
I'm going to ask you to restrain yourself now because we're just trying to wrap things up. I see somebody with a peace sign at the back. I'm going to give you the last word, hoping that it's a peaceful solution.